Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Unlocking Medicare with your host, Tyrone Carr. Today we are privileged to have a special guest, Brian Smith. He's from Florida. He spent some time working at the VA as well as the last decade with the Social Security's office. And he's since retired, and I had the opportunity to meet him while I was on vacation, and I had just run an idea about just what if we were to kind of do an interview and where we just had some clients send in some questions that could be asked, and then we could ask Brian to answer that way. Because what we've learned is just throughout the years that Social Security is such a complex area when it comes to Medicare. And so as people are transitioning, trying to figure out what the next steps are, what to do, I figured, hey, I'll ask Brian and see if he would be willing to join us, and where we could have an opportunity to interview him and ask these questions. And so we've had clients both send in questions, and we've had some financial advisors that I also work with that also provided some questions to ask Brian. And so today we welcome Brian Smith. And Brian, I appreciate you joining us today and spending some time out of your busy day, and now that you're retired. And so thank you. I appreciate you being on the show today. So
it's a pleasure to be here. Happy to help. Couldn't be more excited today, and looking forward to these questions.
Yeah, so what we find is that, Social Security is very complex, and throughout the years that, there's a lot of questions that kind of come up, and there's certain questions that I'm able to answer just through experience, but also just doing my own research and talking with other Social Security officers. But in this case, we're provided just a number of questions that I felt would be really great to have answers to for our audience. And so as we begin to market and share this with the public, hopefully this will help bring some clarity and some value to our listeners. So the one question that we start with, is it true my Social Security goes up in every benefit year I wait to collect? Is that forever until I collect?
Okay, so that's a unique question, multifaceted. So what do we mean by that? So the context. Let's look at the context. Does it go up? Okay. Yes, there's some factors in which it does go up. Okay. So prior to retirement, every year that you hold off filing, you'll see an incremental increase up to full retirement age. Okay.
Now is that a set percentage?
It's not a set percentage. What Social Security looks at, okay, is a 40-year work history. They take the highest 35 years in the moment, and what they do is they say, here's what you're going to get at full retirement age, okay, which is 67 for most individuals today. Okay, prior to that, it was 66, maybe 8 months for some people, 66 and 6, whatever your date of birth was. Okay, there's another context where cost of living, if you filed, all right, context is important here. If you've already filed, you're going to see incremental increases every year for cost of living adjustment, and that means that the federal government will assess a percentage increase, okay, to offset inflation, milk going up, whatever. What was true 20 years ago for the cost of, say, milk is different today, right? So to offset that increase over 20 years, what they'll do is these incremental increase. Around December of every year, your recipients are going to get a nice little piece of paper that says in January next month, i.e., you're going to get a 1.2% increase. So the question in the context is very important, and that's where most people will fall short when they ask a question, and we'll get into that, how you can kind of segue and get away from that. How do I guard myself so that I'm asking the right questions when the time comes that I'm either looking to retire or when I actually retire?
So like when
questions.
So when we have people that come to like a Medicare seminar, there's always the questions that I ask that they have, for me to answer. But then that question, depending on how you frame that question, you could get a different response depending on how that question is framed. So,
absolutely. So let's put it this way. The basic question that everybody has, okay, and I don't want to kind of get too far into the weeds, but the basic question is, am I going to have enough money, right? Really, in reality. But in your experience, how many times have you been asked a question that isn't directly stating that, right? So your experience shows that, they're kind of beating around the bush. Well, if you just come out and ask, am I going to have enough money? You know the meaning behind it, okay? So for example, Social Security is very complex because when you go somewhere to read about that stuff, you don't really have the foresight to know what you're really looking for. You're just looking blindly. What I would tell people who are approaching maybe retirement in the next 10 years is, how do you safeguard yourself so that you're asking the right questions, so that when you come to retire, you're asking the question that you're going to get the answer to, okay? Start reading their website now. Start asking questions. Call them. That's what they're for. They're a good function.
So we keep hearing, and I've told, and tell me if this is true or not, that every year that you defer your Social Security check, you're working, that's going to grow at a minimum of 8% fixed every year. Is that true?
Yeah, partially. And here's what you got to take away, right? At 62, everybody and anybody can retire, okay? As long as you're a U.S. citizen, some cases a permanent resident, okay? Or let's say you're a citizen who's become a naturalized citizen. Then there's some steps that you got to do to get to the point to where you can actually, get your earnings, applied, to get the 35 years work history, the highest 35 out of the 40, to get insured. Okay, now let's fast forward to your question. If you have the work history and you're insured, which is very important, meaning you've got 40 quarters of coverage, okay, step one, that's what you got to have. Then every year that you, from 62 up to your full retirement age, which is different for everybody based on their date of birth, okay? Date of birth. So you can call the Social Security Administration, say, what's my full retirement age? They're going to say, what's your date of birth? Such and such date. It is 67 or 68 and 8 months or whatever the case. Then what happens is, if you hold off till 67, okay, your full retirement amount might be $2,500, okay? Now, if you take it early, they're going to reduce it based on the number of reduction months there is. So if you take it at 63, you're going to see a reduction. Okay, so your full-time or full retirement age amount will get reduced. Now, to your question, this is where it comes into play. Every year, every 12 months beyond 67, okay, they're going to apply an 8% increase up until age 70, and then it stops. What does that mean to your clients? If you don't file for 60 or at 67, 12 months later at 68, you decide what your retirement date is, okay? You're going to set up an appointment with the Social Security. They will take the application. They will process that. And you're going to get an 8% interest for every 12 months you did not file, okay, beyond the age of 67. So your full retirement amount could be a set amount, and then 12 months later, you're going to get assessed a percentage amount.
So you're only going to get the 8% after you reach your full retirement age.
Okay, so the 8% is assessed to your benefit if you file beyond full retirement age. 67, okay, you're going to get your full retirement amount. Beyond that, every year you don't file, you're going to get 8% tacked on for every 12-month period.
Okay. So yes, that was a misunderstanding on my part then, because I thought it was, so if you were someone, you're 62, if you 62, 63, 64, 65, you were getting 8% every single year, and that was the way that I understood it. So, and then so the second part of that question that was asked, do they continue to get that same dollar amount forever until the day that they die?
Yes. So the only terminating factor for you to lose your benefits, okay, today, is if you in fact pass away. Okay, that's it.
Okay.
And if you have a spouse, there's other information in how that ties into things, but
Okay.
termination is death.
Okay. So we'll move on to question number 2 that was asked by a viewer. After I turn 62 and before my full retirement age, how much money can my spouse and I earn before our Social Security benefits are reduced?
Gotcha. So the answer to that is, if you're 62, you file, they're going to put an annual earnings limit on you. Okay. I won't tell you the exact figure because it's $19,000, and I don't ever give the exact because I don't want you to exceed it. Don't go right up to the dollar amount. Now,
so for 2022, it's 19,000.
2022 is like 19,000 and some change. Okay. I will say that up until the year in which you're going to turn full retirement age, they increase it up to 55. Okay. Then once you are assessed that you're at full retirement age, we don't care how much you make. Okay. When we're telling our clients that. Okay. So client comes in and says, I've made $19,000 this year. You're fine. The year that they're going to hit full retirement age, again, the year they're going to attain that, we'll tell them you can make 55, and then afterwards, again, we don't care. Very important to know.
Okay. So what is that? So if a person, let's say in 2022, you said the limit is 19,000 and change, but we'll just say 19,000. Just keep it simple, round numbers. So if that person makes 25,000, how much are they penalized?
Okay, great question. So let's say, for example, I have a client comes into my office and says, I know you told me $19,000, and then wonderful, but I made $25,000. Okay. All right. What happens then is you deduct the automatic known quantity, 19,000 from the 25,000. Right. The difference, Social Security will automatically divide that in half. So 19 from 25, you got $6,000. Social Security will automatically cut that in half. So you're facing $3,000 overpayment. Right?
So is that withheld from like your taxes when you file? Like how they withhold that? When you get that money back?
Good question. However, what they're doing is that $3,000 is what you're automatically entitled to. What they're going to do is they're going to take the monthly amount that your benefit amount is. So let's say it's $1,000, right? They're going to say, how many months will it take to pay off that $3,000? 3 months. They will automatically start deducting. All right. They'll just withhold it all. Now, I won't go into the exclusionary processes, what you can do. We'll save that for another time if warranted. But essentially, if you go over, what they'll do is they'll take what you're allowed to make, deduct it from what you actually made. Okay. And that's why it's very important to always have a relationship with the Social Security office. If you foresee that this is going to happen, call them immediately. Get a plan in place. Don't wait until the IRS sends you those automated systems. Well, then, start collecting right away. Right? You can probably call in there and say, look, I went over. I'm calling you to let you know before I do my taxes next year. I just want to let you know, is there a way that I can get ahead of this? And they'll do some things for you so that you're not just without a check next year.
Gotcha. Okay. So the next question, follow-up is that one spouse's income or combined? So the follow-up is, with that is this, an individual and you have a spouse, you're both collecting Social Security. Is it 19,000? Is it just, what is that? Is it 38,000 combined?
Nope, they don't combine it. It's so if you're on your record receiving benefits and your spouse is on the record receiving benefits, okay, they don't say that you're allowed to make $38,000 each. No, it's 19,000 each. Okay. Now, if one person goes over, it doesn't affect the other person.
Okay.
If the record is separate.
Okay. Great. I didn't know that. Next question. What about the taxation of benefits? How does that work? Question. And is that based on both or just one income?
Okay. Great question. We're not the CPA. Okay. So when I was with the agency, okay, we never directly told you how much percentage, okay, because a CPA, external to the agency, you're going to consult. You're going to say, this is all of my income, okay, this is what I have in my portfolio, this is what I get from Social Security. And what they're going to do is they're going to look at everything and say, well, you're above this, and this is what you need to do. Okay, this is what you have to have withheld. And then the Social Security side of things is you're going to give them a form from the IRS. It's called the W4V form. Okay, you're going to fill out a percentage, and there's a couple that you get to choose from. And what best coincides with what that is filled out and supplied to Social Security. So, for example, 7, 10, 15 and 22% are the choices. Well, if you're in between 10 and 15% at maybe 12%, right? You're gonna essentially pick the higher, so that at the end of the year you're gonna get money back. Now, the amount of money that you file on your taxes, okay, can have an impact on your Medicare premiums, and essentially that could, if you're in a higher tax bracket, you could find yourself paying a percentage more on your Medicare premium. So if you're at a base rate of $148, okay, then next thing you know, you could see a $53 increase on it because of what your tax bracket is.
Sure.
So even though, and quick to note, if you're 67 years of age, okay, we don't care how much you're making. Be careful you don't get into the higher tax bracket, because you'll see an increase on your Medicare.
Okay. Next question. Regarding Social Security, what is considered income? Pensions, IRA withdrawals considered income for the reduction of benefits or the taxation of Social Security? Or is that just money I go out and earn from a paycheck?
The wages, okay, again, context is important. Wages, if you go to the website, okay, you'll see a breakdown of what Social Security looks at in IRAs and annuities and, whatever, how they consider it. The terminology is earned income is wages. It's basically you work for an employer or you're a self-employed individual. What you make is considered income or wages.
Okay. Yeah, so I just thought, because when you file your taxes, I mean, if it's qualified money, any type of distributions, that's going to be counted as ordinary income. But in your case, it actually has to be physically wages. It's considered income.
Yep.
No, it's great to know. Is it true that if a couple was married for 10 plus years, that the lower earning spouse can still collect the higher earning spouse's benefits in retirement even after divorce?
So there's a lot of scenarios in this one particular scenario, okay, that could play out. So if they're married for 10 years, we'll just keep it a baseline information, right, that you can build upon, is this. If you were married for 10 years, okay, and you walk into the Social Security office and you say, I want to file for benefits on my husband's record. We're no longer married. What they will look at is the higher of the two records, okay? Now, let's say they're both the same, okay, or somewhat the same. What I would say is file on the lesser one, okay? That's me thinking like I do. Bear in mind, you as an individual will make this decision. But I'm thinking in terms of the back nine, okay? I'm going to say, I'll take mine, I'll let the higher one accrue, okay? Because I know in the end, the older I get, I can't offset it by working, okay? So I want the more money later. So if I can and I have the choice, what I will do is file. I'll get half of his later on, but it might be higher than that, right? Now, if I file on the wife's record, hit 67, switch over to his, I get the full amount, which is $300 more. But at least I've got something coming in. Now, if the individual that you were previously married to passes away, okay, you're going to get the full half that you were not receiving on his record. So if he was getting $2,000, there's going to be a percentage difference based on when you filed, okay? Just for baseline information. So if you're getting $1,000, he passes away, based on when you filed, there might be some reduction in there. You might get the full amount. And then you don't necessarily have to file on yours later because you're getting his full amount. So there's a lot of scenarios that could play out.
So does the Social Security say if you have a spouse that's earning $1,000 more per month, you know, he passes away, does Social Security, do they already handle all that for the individual, or is it the responsibility fall on the shoulders of the spouse that's collecting the lesser Social Security amount to then contact the Social Security's office, or does it automatically just happen based upon the death of their spouse?
Both are true. Sometimes it does fall on your client to reach out, okay, and touch base with the Social Security office. And it does automatically go through. And oftentimes it doesn't. Again, there's scenarios that play in there. And that's why it's really good to have a good working relationship with your Social Security office and with people like you. Get plugged into the information, stay apprised, what I say today, laws change tomorrow.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, again, going back to it in the beginning part of our conversation, you know, depending on how you ask a question is going to determine the response that you get. Now, as an experienced Medicare agent, I typically can understand the question that in the frame in which they're asking, or how they should be asking it, but they're not asking it in that right frame. So what I'll suggest is this what you were alluding to, or is this what you're looking to have answered? So I will automatically, through experience, because I know how to frame the question correctly to get the proper response. So is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the experience is, you know, you have to understand that, you know, a lot of these questions are based on emotional, physical, and it all kind of comes back to one significant question: money. And am I going to have enough? And as long as you kind of understand the body language, the temperament, you can dissect it. You have to be patient with this stuff. You've got to be clear. As as someone who's walking into, say, Tyrone Carr Associates office, you have to be clear as to what you want. I might not know how this works over here, but this is what I need answered. Okay? Sometimes just saying, this is the scenario. Someone like Tyrone is going to be able to answer that without even understanding the complexity of a question.
I think that's one of the things that I always kind of describe. There's three different levels of agents. You have the agent that inexperienced, doesn't know what they're doing, so they may answer the question that you ask, but they don't know that they need to dive deeper into it with that particular prospect. And then there's a person that knows, but they don't have a lot of vested interest in you, and they just want to write an application, they write a policy, and they just want to move on to the next one. Whereas, with Tyrone Carr Associates, it's about being patient, taking time with that particular individual, making certain that they fully understand the complexity of everything, and that way, when they make a decision, I feel confident in whatever decision that they make. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to agree with the decision that they're going to make, but I still feel confident that they're educated or informed and they're empowered to make the right decision based upon their circumstances, their situation. So I like what you had to say there. So move on to the next question. Is it true, I was going to ask the same question. Upon death of a primary breadwinner in a relationship, is it true that the homemaker or lower income earner can collect the breadwinner's higher income at 100% even after divorce?
See, context is very important, okay? Even after divorce, okay? Yes and no, right? Context really is important. How long were you married? Some people have been remarried to this individual 3 times. As long as the duration of 10 years has been met, okay? And as long as the amount of money is higher, okay, typically by 1.5, right? Then yes, right, you're going to be entitled to that half. Now, there's some scenarios where it might not be advantageous for you to take it yet, right? Are you still working and making money, enough money, and living? Is it just because you can, is it advantageous to take it in that moment? And that's why it's really good to understand the policy of Social Security, to be plugged into an advisor, financial advisor, okay, so that you're maximizing the amount of information that you have in the moment to make a good decision. Both things can be true. Do you file in the moment, take the money, reduce the number of hours of working, but in the long run, the money, if you had continued to work, would have it been more beneficial to continue working? So yes and no, but be careful, all right? Remember, we're dealing with your life. This decision is permanent, okay? You make this decision, you sign on the dotted line. Social Security has a provision. You can't take that back after a certain point. And if you do want to take it back, you have to pay back every cent of money that you took. So it's really important. And I will say yes and no. That there are a lot of scenarios that could plug in here where one, it could be yes, one, it could be no.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement, making certain that your financial advisor, your Medicare advisor, they have a complete, clear understanding of how the laws and rules apply. Because yes, it can affect you financially, not only just in the short term, but permanently. And that.
Yes, there's a saying in the military, and it's prior planning prevents poor performance. Slow things down. Think of the financial advisor, your Medicare, all of these individuals as a team. Get plugged in, make a good sound decision based on good advice. That way you're not regretting, right? Your golden years are supposed to be one of happiness, okay, relaxation, all of the things that you could not do prior to retiring, right? You don't want to spend the next 30 years going, wow, I wish I hadn't done that. Just don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay. All right, so next question. If one is self-employed, what's the best way for one to confirm their logged annual income amounts are correct in the Social Security system?
Wonderful question. I'm no longer with the agency, but what I have seen on their website is the creation of my Social Security accounts. Get one. It's very much like a bank account. You know, you're doing your online banking. Everything is very much automated. A lot of this information, okay, is supplied to the IRS, to Social Security. And through this online account, okay, what you essentially can do is look at what your earnings history is. And if you've got paper trails of your prior tax returns, what you can do is actually look at your earning history, see what you've actually, filed paper-wise, look at them, and if there's any discrepancies whatsoever, you can always take those into your local Social Security office and say, look, here you go. There's an error here or discrepancy. Here's the specific year. Okay. Again, don't get bogged down on systematic things. Okay. Keep it simple. Know that the option is there to see your earnings. Don't get so focused on the formula of how much the formula that gets processed into giving you how much money it is. I would say go with the online account.
Okay.
Create, keep it up to date.
So next question, follow up. How is one Social Security amount deemed? Question, highest 10 years of income? Is that true?
So, in context, what are they getting at? Like, what is the root for their question?
So let's say a person, working from age 30 to 40, right? They're still, developing their skill set, whatever they're maybe further in their education. And now between the age of 50 to 60, now they've got the highest level of education, they've got experience and all that. So now the years between age 30 to 40, their income was, let's say, $500,000 less over the 10 years between the age of 50 to 60, or you could say 55 to 65. So when they determine the Social Security amount, is it based upon those 10 years of the highest earned income? Does that play a factor?
Very great question. So we'll answer it this way, right? Historically, data suggests that your highest earning years are going to be closer to retirement, right? So Social Security will take 40 years. They take the highest 35 years. Okay, those highest years are then calculated in a formula which determines your monetary amount that you're going to get. I think it's like roughly 40% of what you paid in is what you'll see over the next 30 years after you retire, right? So what they're going to do is every higher earning year that you have, the lowest falls off, because they want a formula, give you the formula, right? And they want to plug in the highest amount of earnings that you have. So does that answer the question? Because we want you to understand that this is great information, but does your client really care about the formula or the end result, which is the money? And I think the latter is probably more accurate, but it's great to know, because it makes you sound more complete. To have background knowledge, think of it this way. Some people want to know that stuff.
Okay, so where would you tell? So if I was a person wanting to maximize my Social Security check, what, as it is today, what would you suggest or what would you recommend doing?
What I would say is it really depends on your obligations in the moment, really. I mean, if you don't want to pay your bills late, right, so that you can put more money in, like taxation. I mean, there's lines on the IRS forms that say you can give additional contributions, right? But ultimately, what they're looking at is the gross amount of money that you make in a year, any given year. Okay, so really, if you're a waitress, okay, and you've got a doctor, and they're both working 80 hours a week, there's really no way that waitress can jump up those tax brackets to get what a doctor's already paying into. One individual, based on what their levels of earned income is going to dictate what the end result is in their retirement amount. Somebody who's averaging $100,000 a year, continually paying in $100,000 is going to have a higher amount of income than say somebody who's, a waitress. I mean,
Sure.
If she's a really good waitress at high end, I would say if you're making $50,000 in tips, put them in there, because then you might be at the $90,000 or whatever the case is. But that's really kind of what is important about having a financial advisor. Why it's important to get a plan as early as you can, so that later on down the road, you're ready and prepared for what we call the golden years.
Okay. Next question. Being in a higher inflationary environment, there are significant concerns regarding those with fixed income. Does Social Security go up with inflation? And if so, how does that work?
Okay, so every year, Social Security would assess, the cost of living increase. Okay, and again, this is really why it's important as a society, I think, to really start teaching our kids now, save, because before you know it, you're going to be here. And we really need to stress this. But going back to your point, they're going to assess a cost of living adjustment, right? That's the amount of money that, say, inflation has caused goods and supplies to increase. There's things that, from a Medicare standpoint, that clients can take advantage of, reduce some of their obligations to Medicare premiums. But there's not a set increase. Once you file, you're locked in. Once you file for retirement, you're locked in. And the only thing that's going to increase that is if a couple of scenarios. You stop taking retirement, you pay back what you've given in a 12-month period, okay? They treat it as if you haven't filed. You continue to wait to full retirement, work, and hope that during retirement, you pay into the system and it removes a lower earning year. In the following year, you're assessed that higher amount, sometimes on average $10, $20, $30, right? Added to your monthly benefit amount. But the cost of living adjustment, I don't know that you can, in a very strong inflationary market, offset anything with a 2.3% interest rate increase or a 1.7 or whatever that is. So what tell your clients is focus really on having a plan prior to retirement.
What would you say to an individual that they went on Social Security and they haven't reached full retirement age, and say, what, I need to go. Let's say they were 64, they started collecting a Social Security check at 64, they were full retirement ages until 67, they worked for a year at 65, they collected a Social Security check, and they realized, I need to go back to work and probably need to work as long as I possibly can, maybe another 5 years, and I can, instead of making $30,000 a year in Social Security, I can go make $60,000. So they would have to pay back that full.
You bring this question. It's really funny you bring this question up. I had a 76-year-old call me and say, you know what, I got your name from word of mouth, and I'm thinking about retiring. And I was like, you haven't retired yet? He said, well, no, I haven't. The amount of money that I'm making, I do all right. So the question really comes back to, is this person doing all right if they want to return to work? What are the reasons or the basis of returning to work? Are you bored? No, I'm just not making enough money. Then how long have you been taking retirement? 12 months. Okay. 11 months. So as long as you haven't exceeded a 12-month period and you have that money or the capability of paying it back, let's just say hypothetically, you do. You have that 12-month amount, pay it back to Social Security, go back to work. Because today, $2 again today really wasn't what it was 6-7 years ago.
So is there at any point a number of years that pass where you don't have to pay any sum of money back, or it doesn't matter, you'll have to pay any sum of money back?
So if you see, let's just say I have an individual who is retired, and 10 months later they walk into my office and say, I really wish I hadn't retired. I just really, there's no real reason. Okay, I haven't used the money. Well, then what do you want to do? Remember, these are human individuals. These are people, they have feelings, right? And I'm just bored. I want to go back. I got used to talking to the guys at work. Got used to, I don't really talk to them. Okay, take that 11, 10, 9, 8, 3, 4 months worth of Social Security checks, send it back. First contact and say, look, this is what I'm thinking.
Okay, but so I mean, and I don't want to get so far in the weeds, but again, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. If they decide to go back to work,
it doesn't matter. No.
And they haven't reached full retirement age, they have to pay that money back no matter what.
Well, yeah. So as long as you haven't exceeded a 12-month period, okay, of receiving checks, you get beyond that 12 months, it doesn't matter. You're locked in. You have a grace period of a certain amount of months where you can say, look, retirement's not working for me. You don't need to tell them anything.
So when you say they're locked in, so they are now 15 months retired, they've been collecting a Social Security check.
Yeah, the Social Security Administration is not going to take their money back and say, look, we're going to, essentially when you send that money back, you're saying, I don't want to retire. Okay, you don't need to know the reason. That's it. I want to send this money back, and I want to go back to work, and I want to wait until I'm 67. Now, if your individual comes to your office and says, "John, I heard your podcast. I can give this money back," and she says, "For the past 2 years, I've been really bored." You could say no because you're beyond that 12-month period. It doesn't work for you. Okay, so what they will do is essentially say, "Here's the money. We're going to retract your application. We're going to treat it as if you've never filed before. You go to work, you file with the IRS, and at 65, 66, 67, your incremental changes to your Social Security amount goes up because it's like you've never filed. Remember the first discussion.
Okay, so
62. So you postpone it, the higher it goes.
So you have to pay it back if you went back to work within the first 12 months. But you don't have to pay it back if you were collecting a Social Security check longer than 12 months.
No. Misunderstanding. Let me clarify. If somebody walks into your office and says, I've been on Social Security for 11 months. I don't want Social Security. I took it at 64. I decided I'm gonna keep working. I'm gonna take it at 67. For the Social Security office to say, you know what, we'll do that. You have to pay the money back first. If they walk into your office and say, look, it's been 2 years. I heard on your podcast, I can pay this money back because I filed at 64. I, in fact, want to wait till 67 and get the higher amount. You have to tell them, no, you're beyond the 12-month provision. It allows you to do that. Okay, Social Security is not going to let people do that. They're concrete. Okay, unless the rules change, which I'm not privy to.
I think I'm misunderstanding you, because what I just said was exactly what you said. So you said they're locked in. They're locked in to not having to pay it back, or they can't stop it.
No, you absolutely cannot retract your application if you're beyond the 12 months. It doesn't matter. If you're going to call and say, I want to give this money back to Social Security, they're going to say, no, you're beyond the 12 months. It doesn't matter. You can't. Because remember, most people who want to do that is because they want to treat it as if they've never filed before, so that they can wait till 67 and have the full retirement amount. Remember, it's about money.
Okay, so it's about them stopping it, paying the money back, and then allowing the money to continue to grow until
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Now it makes sense. Okay. So what would you say to the viewers, because we're seeing more and more people that it's difficult to get a hold of Social Security's office. How soon in advance would you suggest someone reaching out to the Social Security's office? Are they taking in-person appointments yet due to COVID?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not there anymore, so I don't know the inner workings. I would just say, to get that information, contact the local Social Security office. Remember, the online account is really great because you can file an application without visiting the office.
Yeah, it is true, but you'd be surprised at how many people don't have access to a computer that I deal with. That don't have the internet. You'd be surprised. So, but then I've got people that are just having a hard time getting a hold of their local Social Security. They can't. They're on the phone for 2 or 3 hours at a time.
I think that's. I don't know that the answer to that question. I really don't. If you want, to get a hold of them, unfortunately, I don't know what the guidelines are anymore. You gotta, go to their website, see what the hours of operation, see how the context of how they're operating it. Be patient. It took you some time maybe to come to this conclusion. But
okay, so let me ask. So you recently retired, though.
Mm-hmm.
So prior to retiring recently, so assuming that everything's still the same, would you say, is there a phone number to call? Is there email? Can you stop? Can they just stop by the Social Security's office? Because I know you can go to ssa.gov, and if you can log in if you have an account, or you can create an account, because I've helped individuals do that. But I mean, what is the most efficient way? Because my understanding is that
it really all depends on your comfort level, really. Okay, I didn't retire so recent that that I know how things are operating today, per se. Okay, but what I would say is you can file online. You can call the office to see how they're operating. If they're having an appointment or appointments into the office, I don't know. But reach out to them. I mean, yes, I would say they're doing the best they can under the circumstances that we've all gone through recently. And I'm not so inclined to say what should have been done or what should be done. But I would just say is take a deep breath, get on the phone, wait patiently, figure out as much information.
Okay,
they put out things.
Is there a better time to call during the day?
Every office is going to be operating regardless whether they're open to the public. Call volume might be higher. I don't know. That's the question. I just don't know anymore.
Okay. I had a couple more questions that I had personally, and it completely slipped my mind.
A lot of information to go through. So I mean,
Well, this is what we're going to do is we're going to put this on our YouTube channel podcast. We're going to let friends and clients of mine on Facebook know that we shot this video and we're going to post it to go and watch it, subscribe to the channel, and if they like it, if they want to hear more, if they have more questions, and they'd like to have you back on the show, to let us know, and that we can work out a future date and time that works best for all parties involved. And so, well, Brian, I appreciate your time on the show today, and the information was extremely valuable, and I know I learned a lot, and it kind of helped clarify some information for me as well. And so, again, all the best to you and your family, and we look forward to speaking to you. So, and then to our viewers, thank you again for watching another episode of Unlocking Medicare with Tyrone Carr. If you liked what you heard today and what you watched, please subscribe to our channel and pass our information along to your family, friends, or peers. And again, we're want to bring value by providing education to our audience and helping individuals make informed decisions. So thank you and have a great day. Thank you for checking our podcast today. We appreciate you, and please check out our website where we have future dates and times for our Medicare 101 seminars throughout the Metro Detroit area. So please check us out, come meet us in person. Look forward to meeting you in person. And again, tune into our next week's podcast as we dive deeper into Medicare. Thank you. Have a great day.